Welcome to Bulwarks and Bulldust. We're here at the Captain's Lounge at the beautiful Boatworks. I'm here with John Kernow and Lee Randall. We have a panel discussion today. We're discussing greenwashing in the marine industry. John, I was just doing a little bit of research. The recreational boating category represents about 0.1% of global warming around the Earth. I'm just wondering why we're even bothering with all the power that goes on in this space, and why we're just running around in combustion engines all the time.
Look, it's a really valid point, and I suppose the biggest thing is that everybody wants to be seen to be doing something rather than nothing. I'm no fan of Tier 3 because, frankly, it uses up exorbitant amounts of rare earth minerals. The emphasis on rare there, of course, and not only that, they're finite and they're very expensive to mine. But it's a bit more than that, because it also comes down into the propulsion systems. It comes down into the very materials that are used to make vessels and sails and all the rest of it. I know, Lee, you're incredibly passionate about the subject, so before I even make any other comments, I might throw you and we'll just dry on in.
Yeah, well, I think, I've worked in the industry for a long time now, and I've worked with a lot of companies that have engaged with this hybrid or EV principle, if you like. And look, I'm not saying it's not part of the future. I've never said that. But I do believe that we're not in a place right now where it's really viable on a large scale right now. But I think you're right. I think to advertise the fact that we are an EV or a hybrid or whatever the case may be, we're ignoring all the other stuff. We're ignoring what that actually costs to produce. When I say cost, what's the environmental cost to produce all that? But I don't know. Ollie, what do you think of? I mean, we know enough about Tesla. We know enough about all that at the moment with EV and general life. In the marine industry,
Yeah, we just hear some ridiculous stories. And I guess working in this space, we're talking a lot. We're talking engine manufacturers, we're talking boat manufacturers, and you come across a crazy story. You hear engines going into certain boats and certain applications in markets that you require bigger motors to be specified. It was cutting around all these batteries, and and then you find out at night that there's the boats, the ferries are getting plugged into diesel generators. That's not also counted in as part of the equation. So there's all this spin about environmentally friendly and zero emissions and all this sort of stuff. But there seems to be in a lot of cases, a real environmental impact right then to mine all of the things that are mined for renewables when we're using these finite, although they are abundant, but they're finite resources, and the pollutants and the processes and the stories are quite often covered over with a real marketing spin. And I guess that's what we're here to talk about today. It's greenwashing. The definition of greenwashing is a company or organisation that pretends to be more environmentally friendly than what they actually are. So I guess what we'd like to see is a lot more accuracy, a lot more transparency, a lot more auditing, I guess, too. And I think consumers want to make the right decisions, but they need to be able to do that with correct information. And this discussion all about just sort of trying to bring that to a bit of a head.
well, I think what I see is greenwashing as being more about this perception of social responsibility rather than actual. It's definitely not about performance.
No. I mean, ultimately, too, sailing is always touted as the great green of green on the blue. We won't go into that right now. However, never do I hear anybody talking about, especially high-end yachting, the amount of things that have gone into manufacture of the boats and the sails, the gear that's been carted all around the world on board ships, and the crew that fly in planes. I just find it a bit hard to talk about the green of green, and that to me is probably the ultimate example of greenwashing, when in actual fact there is a very high reliance. Nothing is as cheap as a litre of diesel, and I think we all need to start from that point and realise that we are doing the planet a disservice if we go too far with things that aren't rare. aren't doing us a great thing. Or worse, we had no solution for them at the end of the thing of their life. The blades from wind farms would be the classic example. We're now digging holes to stick them in so people can't take satellite pictures off them. I think, and they only last anywhere from 5 to 15 years, let alone the huge concrete slab at the bottom of the mast. So for me, can we just have a little bit of relativity before we go too far into a particular point? That's all I'm getting at. I love the idea of waterproof, zero electrolyte, lithium iron phosphate batteries. I like the fact that LIFE actually has life. Yeah. So I guess I'm not totally negative on the whole thing. I just want some relativity.
Yeah, well, the world's a big place for all knots, isn't it?
Giant flash of 4 knots and going quickly under electricity limits your range very, very swiftly.
Well, exactly right. I mean, and are we having, in terms of performance side of things, which I always seem to roll back to, are we talking about the infrastructure doesn't exist right now to support EV or hybrid to a point more so EV going completely electric in a marine vessel still is not really that viable. Look, it's a hard one, and here at Bulwarks and Bulldust, we are here to ask the questions and talk about the Bulldust of this sort of thing.
The marine industry, it's a big manufacturer of products. Some of the stuff that gets made is a little bit nasty. Some of the power sources can be considered a little bit nasty, but some of the new technology coming through doesn't necessarily resolve all our problems. But obviously it's an evolution. But we're here to have a little bit of a chat. These two gentlemen here are obviously very, very clever in the marine industry, and John's written a lot about this topic. Wearing another hat. But John, where are you currently sitting with the whole greenwashing in the marine industry topic?
Look, there is a lot of it that has gone on in the past, and now thankfully a lot more of the truth is coming out about it. Yes, no doubt there is a lot of material on Sail World and Powerboat World that covers this off, and we'll put some of those links in the description below for you to begin that journey. But really, what we're talking about here is the grander picture and how we actually make things more sustainable totally, because of course we have talked at length previously about hiding the carbon fibre blades from wind generators underground so the satellites don't take pictures of them. But I think it's things like the largest boat builder on the planet, Beneteau Group, are actually out there with their NEO project for the Lagoon 620, a very popular model. They built over 200 of them, just over 200. For the market, and they're underway with the first 2 that are getting a total refit. So the hulls and the mast that are the original part, and then the rest of the boat gets refitted. We're avoiding landfill, we're keeping the boats going for longer, and we're elevating them to the new standards of technology and requirements for comfort and so forth that have changed even since that model first appeared on the market. So I think those are really important aspects to deal with. Green is a holistic picture, not just an individual item, and we've also got in those articles that we'll highlight for people to go and begin those journeys, things from recycling of sails and vessels all the way through to how we deal with the electrification argument, and most importantly, everybody's into diesel, but actually it's not CO2 that's a problem, it's NOx, and if you're more efficient to begin with, by virtue of hull design and choice of engine, then you're already in front. So for us, the discussion is a much larger picture, and that's really what we're trying to get across with this whole thing. Yes, it's plastic bottle, and yes, it's look after the wonderful locations that you might go to in Asia or the Pacific or the Caribbean, or the Med for that instance. But it's a bigger thing than just a tiny little wedge. And that's the real key for me.
Yeah, well, I think, and sorry, Lee, you've probably got a lot of things to say too on this topic. But the thing that really, raised my eyebrows was, discussing recently with an engine manufacturer, who they were talking about large ferries that they were involved in the program on those, putting engines in, and because of the battery weight, they've got to put in larger engines than they've ever had to put in. And when the boats aren't actually in service, they're in the dock, they're plugged into a diesel generator, and I just find that to be ridiculous. And this is the sort of stuff that we're putting up with and we're accepting. And I think we all need to hold everybody responsible. If we're purchasers or we're looking at the market or looking at manufacturers or making that purchase decision, we've really got to grill and drill down and grill them on their credentials and how these things are actually audited and what and dig a little bit deeper, or otherwise we will get the spin and we will be sucked into the spin.
But we've got to start somewhere.
True. That's where humans have to start somewhere.
We've got to start somewhere. I mean, I don't think you can't argue that EV is part of our world now. Whether you look at Tesla or the more accessible, cheaper BYD, it is part of our world. None of us drive a Tesla, and I'm not rushing out to buy one. However, we have to start somewhere, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the issue is, from my point of view, is the infrastructure, and that's linked to what we're talking about here with the diesel generators. I think there's a very romantic utopian view that comes with EV, and with all, we don't hope that it fails, but by the same token, the technology's not there yet. And the horror stories that you're hearing about Tesla and the marketplace at the moment, not highlighting anything from Tesla, but the horror stories in the market at the moment it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and look, that's exactly it. And at the end of the day, batteries that don't last for a certain lifespan, have we really achieved anything by doing that? It doesn't mean that we can't be better in terms of storing power on board and not having to run a diesel for any particular amount of time if there's enough solar or wind generation, or if you're a yacht, hydro regeneration. But the thing really comes down to that grander thing of just what are we doing, and more importantly, how are we doing it? If you look at it, like Wally was saying, and thank you to John Clark as well, the late John Clark, driving a ferry for 40 minutes to charge it up at the other end for 40 minutes, but we're not talking about the source that's generating the very power that it's using. I'm sorry, but that really is the ultimate in greenwashing, because if you don't want to look at that whole picture, then you're missing out on the final deal. And it's very much the same with everything that goes into mining the original materials, let alone transporting it to the various locations during its life of being processed, then converted into something, and then finally arriving as a battery or whatever inside a vessel. If you don't take the whole picture, then you're not really looking at the ultimate solution. Doesn't mean we're not about doing nothing. That's not what we're talking about. But for instance, the world was actually greener when carbon was at 4,000 parts per million, and we're currently at 400. So this is not a carbon problem. What it does need to do is reflect on the fact that we're only taking data from when we started recording, which is roughly when the industrial age began. So might be a problem in the data.
I think a lot of the greenies have just given us thumbs down, John. I think that they're all lighting up the internet at the moment and giving us. But you do need to check your sources, absolutely. And there's a lot of conflicting information. Some of that information.
Climate's a business too.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Climate is a business now.
And it's a big shift, isn't it? It's a big shift towards battery technology away from fossil fuels. But as we all know, the output from a litre of diesel, there's nothing else that really can come close. Not a battery technology, not hydrogen, nothing that I'm aware of. Or perhaps nuclear.
Well, we're probably 10 years away from anything that will be able to be used in large boats that will have anywhere near enough power and range and be safe. So, those elements alone are certainly worth the consideration, that's for sure.
Just expanding on the political element for a second, and Wally, I always turn to you when I start to go a little political here. But what about the process of companies attracting grants and attracting taxpayers' money for chasing something that's potentially a dead-end street?
Well, anyone that doesn't toe the line, they don't get the grants, do they? They don't get the funding, they don't keep their position. But there's a lot of very, very smart people out there with totally different stories to tell. So look, it just comes down to do your homework. Yes, we are on a journey. Yes, we're trying to make things better, but don't fool yourself, I guess. Don't do the John Clark and tow it outside the environment. It's still going to be there. But yeah, do your homework and grill people on what they're saying, but don't buy into the bullshit, I guess. John, you've done a lot of work with solid state batteries. I think you've written a recent article on that as well. Was that Powerboat World?
Both Powerboat World and Sail World Cruising, and I think the big thing is that there's an advancement there because of the safety aspect with no electrolyte, 0% electrolyte, hence solid state. So yes, there is a journey, there is a path, and one needs to be very clear. It does take a lot of reading, and it certainly takes a lot of investigation in the old how many sources, much more than one. Multiple sources, always a good look.
All right, welcome back to Bulwarks and Bulldust and our panel discussion on greenwashing in marine industry specifically. So welcome again to Annika Thomson from Ocean Crusaders. We in the marine industry, we're here. It's been very good to all of us. We've worked in it for a long time, and obviously you've worked in a couple of different sectors with the cleanup. I want to talk today about the marine industry and the dumping of waste and the specific marine industry stuff that comes out. We talked briefly before about the IBC containers, which are definitely marine industry. What can the marine industry do better?
First of all, I want to say congratulations to Bulwarks, and have done a fantastic job and had a world-class facility here. When I first up to Australia 2003, the common practice was to pull your boat out I was in Elevate Money Bay, then up Porterville, and you pulled it out alone tide. You did all the scraping and anti-fouling in the water, and off you go again. I was shocked. As a European, that was allowed. And in Australia, that was just like, what do you mean? That's what we do. You just pull the boat up on the beach and clean it. Now we're not doing that. So we've gone a long way in the 22 years that I actually did. So we're doing well there. You can always do better. Like I'm looking at consume the right products that are manufactured, not the manufacturers. I cannot speak for many other ones that go. I know that they're working with recycled coal. So we're having recycled PET core that they're making more and more accessible and stronger and stronger, so they can work with that in sandwich composites. They're also making a bioacids. They're getting better and better. We're not there yet, and obviously it's pretty new products that maybe been out and researched for the last 10 years. So how long are they going to last? We don't know that because we haven't had the aware or the tale of it yet that they're doing the research. So again, look at the man that they where you're buying your products for resins, your pour from, and make sure that they are doing the research in the background. The big question is probably to propose what do we know to do when we don't use the diesel anymore, because the diesel is so active. And nothing can beat a petrol in speed and performance. It's just so much fun, isn't it? It goes fast and it's noisy.
But a diesel's pretty efficient too.
Yeah.
A litre of diesel.
It is so efficient.
Yeah.
That was an acceleration, but a bit. We have gone from steam, we have gone to diesel. What's the next generation going to be? We're not there yet. That industry not there yet. I talked to one of my biggest sponsors in Sweden, this Yamaha Motors, and they are in the big factories. They are looking into the hydro motors to be on the shelves to put out. That's probably 10 years away.
Yeah, and that's something we talk about a little bit on this panel is obviously the greenwashing effort, the marketing machine that revolves around marine sales. It's all about hybrid electrification. Yeah, but you made the statement just there. We're not there yet.
No.
And so I feel like there is some false marketing going on around the whole thing. I mean, you've been writing that stuff. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself that it's also the high end of racing, and yep, that's the phone staying already. The high end of racing, jump on a plane and fly to the boat, and then the boat gets shipped somewhere else, and all of this, and you're going, oh yeah, we're green in the yacht racing business, and you're kind of like, yeah, except for the boat and the sails and the rig. But the point really comes down to, and big note to the Penville Smiths in the UK for their recovery work on resins and fibres. It's truly amazing what they're doing. We'll put a link to that that we wrote about in the description for the story. But the really big thing is that, we love to say that we're clean and green in the marine gang, that the cold hard reality just a little bit outside. So I think we have to call Bulldust on that one. Big time.
Yeah.
Also,
Bulldust.
I mean, don't say it's green and it's not. I mean, it's just...
Well, don't use it as a tool to sell this.
Yeah, that's the point. We're green-ish,
Yeah.
but just leave it at that.
I mean, we were talking to an engine manufacturer recently, big ferries in the Pacific and, batteries. So big batteries on board, lots more weight. So guess what? Got to put bigger diesels in to drive the boats around because they weigh a lot more. What happens at night? Oh, they pipe them into the diesel generator because diesel generators sit outside of any kind of, regs on emissions. And you can do whatever and pump whatever as long as it's a generator. But we're green because we've got this battery powered ferry. Yeah. I'm calling Bulldust on that. That's pretty simple. But yeah, there's a lot of greenwashing going on. Yeah. And we need to cut through that. You mentioned some companies before with new technologies around recyclings of materials that go into boat building. Is that all undertaken by those individual companies? Are they large organizations that can fund that? Where's the CSIRO and all this stuff as well? Albo wants us all to be a smart country. He wants us to put, more resources back into manufacturing. Where is our innovation and all of this stuff, or where's it coming from? Is it taken up by individual companies, or is there a bit more of a master plan with government, consultation and private enterprise? I don't know. You hear of anything in that space at all?
I would say that no, I'm not an expert in that space at all. I know that a lot of the inventions are all that is undergoing, but I'm working a lot with Europe. So work with European companies, and there have been, for example, the build of the J-boat. It seems like I have the composite, I have the drive, everything is coming out of Holland. So it's a lot happening up there in that space. The government, the bodies up in Europe, it's much harder rules about emission and the future. So they have deadlines. So everyone in Europe is working much harder to be greener quicker than we have here in Europe, in Australia, because it was yesterday this government now, then we actually got a little bit back on track with the rest of the world, with what deadlines. So we need to continue that good work and see what the rest of the world is actually doing, and understand that we need to take more responsibility here in Australia. I have no doubt we have very clever people and industry say yes, waiting to bloom if we and but again, someone needs to buy the product and get on with it, and there needs to be government funded and farming funded put into that and believing in the product and know that it's going to have a future for Australia to bloom again.
I mean, I guess the big thing too out of all of this is if you're old enough, and I'm qualified, you remember that you used to go to the greengrocer and buy only enough for then, and it was put in a paper bag, or you bought something that was in a glass jar. These are all sustainable things. If we take it into the marine space, it used to be wood, steel, aluminium, right? They're all immediately returnable. But as you were discussing, conversation for your particular program, we have a situation where often they don't know what the plastic is. It's very hard to recycle it. So it's a situation where, do we need to get back to trying to buy from the greengrocer in the paper bag or the jar of gherkins in a glass jar?
A little bit utopian there, buddy.
A little bit utopian, but what I'm trying to sort of say is with the marine industry, do we need to come back to, identifiable, therefore longer purpose or repurposable once their current life is done? Is there some way that we can sort of start to take the greenwashing out of the marine sector and go, it's this now, and when it's done that job at 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever its lifespan is, it can then go on to be this job. Just like a paper bag can be a paper bag, go back through and come back out as another paper bag. Yiddy! Is there something we can do in that space?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Not in maybe every part, because you will always have I got the big symbiotes of that. I don't think they want to have it as seal shit. But they looking at repurposing everything. Yes, that should be done, so it doesn't.
That's a really good point you made just there. Maybe every super yacht needs to have a strategy around what they do in their own little community, your own little social circle, but your own little bubble.
Yeah. Right. It's really hard to take away the candidate the kids already have listed. Because we do yachting for fun, for the most of us. And that would be frustrated a bit, but that's fun. And it's really bad for the environment. So how do you make that better? It is a big question, and I don't have answers, or don't think anyone has answers right now. But they are trying to make it greener. And I think we just have to have the faith that we're actually going to make it greener. I don't think we can go backwards. We don't go back to seeing shit. We need to go forward, and we need to go forward with our composites and our materials and make sure that they are as good as what they can get, and then to repurpose.
Yeah, we're just going to do everything perfectly, but there's a lot of areas that we can do much, much better in, and I think that whole collective then is a much better outcome than where we're at. We're just hiding and ignoring from so many issues and just get pushed down the line. So,
yeah,
great. But thank you.
Yeah. Stand up and be counted, basically, is what we're talking about, which is what you've been doing. Thank you.
If you want any more ideas, reach out to oceancrusaders.org. Thanks, Annika. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.
Another big challenge for the future is obviously power. You're obviously a big manufacturing facility. It takes a lot of power to run these operations. Cost of power must be substantial in the running costs of the operation. Businesses are drawing more and more. Populations are growing. And
let me say, Wally, it's not only cost; it's reliability. And this is one thing that the government doesn't talk about right now in this election cycle. You cannot run the world on solar and wind. It just will not work.
You call him Bulldust on it.
Yeah, absolute bulldust. And, there's a lot of lies being told around it. So what does Riviera need? One thing is cost. The other thing is reliability. If I'm infusing a hull and the power goes out, I'm screwed. What did that hull cost? 100 grand? Gone. So reliable power. So we've got 200 kilowatts of power on our roof now, but the power goes out. We've got one generator, but it won't run the whole site. So we're doing an exercise right now on power with some high engineers, generators, diesel powered, 2 backups, not auto switch over, but manual, because we've got 24/7 security on site. We can manually switch it over. We're okay with that. We're looking at solar on each individual factory, because every individual factory, and there's 20 odd factories at Riviera, have different power demands. So what solar can we put on each roof? What can we do? How does that feed back into the network? But right now, used to be the opposite to where it is right now. The most expensive power is off-peak. Why? Because the cost of storage. When you're shutting down the coal-fired power stations that produce 24/7, they didn't know whether the sun was out or not. Solar only works in the peak of the day when power used to be cheap. Now, an off-peak used to be cheap. Now it's the opposite. It's swung the 180 degrees. And that's not me. That's our electrical consultants and engineers telling us that, because the cost of storage, the cost of batteries is high.
Right.
And, we're shutting down coal-fired power stations and we're not allowed to talk about nuclear.
No.
So...
But we've been mining nuke for 70 years in this country and shipping it around the planet. And we've got arrangements with America, with China, with Europe, UK.
Look at the coal.
Right.
Now,
and
whether you're burning coal
it.
in China and you're allowed to pollute because they're not part of the Paris Accord, they're building, I think, 140 coal-fired power stations. And we've got 6 and we want to shut them down.
Yeah, but it's outside the environment when they do.
Oh, yeah, that's
Thank you, John.
not in our bubble, so it is absolutely crazy what we are doing with power and not being able to have what's Australia need rather than what's the Liberal Party or the Labor Party or the Greens, what's right for Australia. And this is the problem with our politics. It's about bulldust and being popular rather than how do we make Australia the best sustainable country, cleanest, best, and how do we get there and what's that journey look like?
I mean, cheap, reliable power, the things that we could do, the things that we could achieve in this country rather than just shipping ore offshore, but, value adding here and shipping around the world. But, manufacturing basically anything for global markets. Once you've got cheap, reliable power.
Invariably, the answer is going to be nuclear.
It is.
But and Bill Gates is one of the biggest greenies in the world. He has made that statement. And him and Warren Buffett are building a nuclear power station. Now, is it a massive one? When people think of nuclear, they think of Chernobyl, they think of Japan, where they had meltdowns and this, that, and the others. There was a reason those things happened.
Yes.
And it's understanding the reason and why do we do it. I do know confidentially there is some very big players working on small nuclear microprocessors. You can power a nuclear ship for 35 years or a submarine, never come up for air. That technology exists today. And you can look at nuclear power stations that fit where Liddell coal-fired power station used to be. It's not a massive one. It's not a $15 billion project. It might be a $5 billion project.
And you tap into the infrastructure
that's there. Into the infrastructure that's there. But they're trying to put solar all around it on the farms or, on the coal stuff. So
and use all the arable land for
the
whole thing is the dairy farming.
The worst part is there's not a mature, sensible conversation.
Yeah.
What does Australia need in the next 30 years? It's a bipartisan political football, so no one makes a decision.
No, it's about...
It's back to why I don't build boats for them.
Planning for decades to come. As you say, it's very short-sighted. It's just that election cycle every time, and it's never changed. It's never stopped.
Sadly, that's the way it is. And, we've got uranium. We've got places everywhere that we can put uranium waste and that sort of thing. In Europe, they're opening up nuclear power stations in Germany that they'd shut down. Why?
Yeah.
Because they have to.
Yes.
If they don't, they're going to be out of power. Look at Europe. Look at that as a case study and how they deal with the waste and what they do, and they're green, green and green.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
There's only so many solar panels and windmills we can have, you know.
And the windmills are terrible.
Yeah.
When you look at how they have to put the foundations, the steel, the infrastructure to put up one windmill, and how much carbon has been burnt to get that one windmill, and how reliable they are, we are mad.
Not to mention the disposal
Yeah.
of that windmill
Blades.
afterwards. Yeah.
Blades and all of that.
Yeah.
It is silly.
They
My
are.
favourite had to be the digging, getting the bulldozers out, powered by diesel, of course, to dig
Yeah,
the
yeah,
trenches
yeah.
to push the carbon blades in
Yeah.
to hide them so the satellites couldn't find them.
Oh, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So where's Riviera, or probably you personally, sitting with the whole argument around electric propulsion for vessels? There's no secret that, you know, we on this panel are a fan of a litre of diesel and the power output that you get out of it. What's the future looking like?
There's going
for
to
you?
be lots of things tried, from foiling to, you know, electric, this, that and the other. I don't see in the next 10 years there's going to be a solution of alternate fuel, electricity, or foils or anything else that suits our style of boat. Say that, 0 to 10. This way, 10 is forward. And I'm talking there from talking to MAN, MTU, Volvo Pentar, and they're all getting their heads together as well as to what they can do. You think of the amount of outboards that are built today. And one of the guys at Brunswick has said to me, Wes, we've got the best electric small motors you can have, outboards. I can't sell them. Can't sell them.
That's definitely been coming
That's
through
been
from all the
happening.
sources.
You look at the electric cars and the myth around them, and the electric car market is reversing big time.
A lot of it's the infrastructure as well.
Correct. But they get sold to Bulldust. They get sold that Bulldust. And Australia's a big country. Now, electric car in CBD Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, golf buggy type mentality makes a lot of sense. But driving here to Melbourne or here to Sydney and planning that trip and having to plug in for hours doesn't make a lot of sense. Our trucks, the lifeblood of Australia, our trucking industry, doesn't make a lot of sense on long haul. But there's local delivery, makes a lot of sense. When you're going back to a depot at night where you can have solar and other alternate sources of power, it's a blend. It's never one.
Yeah, it's not one
But, you know, there's
solution.
talk of hydrogen, there's talk of methanol, there's talk of alternate fuels, there's talk of electricity. None of it's coming quickly.
Well, I believe you need 60 times the volume of hydrogen to do the same job as diesel. So that's not.
And then
It's
do
not
I want
practical.
hydrogen bombs running around everywhere?
Well, that's right.
You know,
And
it
not-
blows up big too.
And the
That's a great
vessel,
history.
and the vessel that has to hold that liquid hydrogen as well.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean the recreational, the regulations more so around hydrogen at the moment is quite hard. You know, it's above deck storage. You can't have them underneath the deck. It's tricky.
And there's a
One
bit
thing
of,
that I would say to that we will move into with absolute certainty, and we're doing it now, is people in Australia and New Zealand in particular want to run their generators less and less. So lithium batteries, the batteries we've been fitting for just on 5 years now, is a game changer. You add that with solar panels on the hard tops and everything, and what we're getting out of that. Typical customer will say to me, Wes, I'm happy to run my generator 3 hours a day. In the afternoon, done my water sports, done my fishing, cleaning up, done diving, whatever. I'm washing up, I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, I'm doing all of that. I'm cooling the boat down for the night time. I'm happy to run it for 3 hours, the generator. In America, I'll run for 24 hours and I'll go home if it stops. But here, we're more practical, and I don't want the generator running when I'm on anchor at night, upsetting my neighbours, doing all of that. So for us, it's a matter of minimising generator runtime, maximising quiet time. How does that work?
which is why you're out there, isn't it?
Stabilisation. Everyone wants stabilisation. Everyone wants inverters. It's, you know, what can I get the performance out of all of those things? So the first step for us is not propulsion, it's the ancillary things, because we have proven to ourselves and to Volvo 2 electric motors, 55 kilowatt each, at 9 knots, doesn't go as far as with a D4 generator, 2 D13s ticking over at 9 knots. The 26 litres ticking over on idle, 9 knots, will go further than one generator to run those 2 electric motors. It'll use more fuel. When you look at that, you go,
How's that the case?
how's that work?
Yeah.
Can't work. But it's the truth.
Yes.
It's the
They're
truth.
just working at lower revs and
Correct.
yeah.
We're very keen to find out your position on the boating industry and greenwashing. Obviously, boats require a lot of GRP to be built, but there are timber products on board and so on and so forth. But it's really interesting to find people go, oh, well, you know, you can live on batteries for 24 hours, and all of this. So the greenwashing can disguise the reality, I guess is what we're really saying. But in your eyes, you're delivering a product that the people are aware of is what it's doing and how it operates. You don't find people questioning the veracity of your statements in regards to carbon emissions or longevity of products or so forth.
No, look, I totally agree with what you're saying. Look, I was working with government on output emissions, so I know a lot about the emission side of things. And you look at the motor vehicles, and they're catalytic converters and they're very clean, but they pollute 30 times more than the marine industry. The locomotives do the same. So, fiberglass you can recycle into road base. Generally doesn't happen. Aluminium boats, obviously, you can recycle aluminium. Diesel engines, they're getting a lot cleaner than they ever were.
Or phenomenally cleaner than they were.
Yeah,
And that includes the nitrous oxide products as well.
that's right. I mean, you see an old Bertram or a Hatteras or something with a couple of 2-stroke Detroits in it. When they hit the throttles, the back of the boat used to go black.
Oh, yeah, but they go very quickly.
Well, yes.
It wasn't the place to stand, was it? No.
No, but yeah, it's a whoosh.
Yeah, and there's renewables now. They're using a lot more reconstructed timbers, if you like, with using veneers. I think over the next 5 or 6 years, there's going to be something that replaces teak, because the world's running out of teak, and you don't need teak on your decks.
No, and it's hard to maintain.
Yeah.
Hard to maintain well.
Some of the vinyl fabrics are recyclable now out of plastic bottles. So, and there's Princess are investing a lot in that, but it's still a boat and it's still got to be run by a diesel engine, because to get the range that we need, you can't put a big hydrogen tank in the middle of it.
No,
It's illegal anyway.
Yeah,
it's not feasible, the scale of what would be required.
No,
I think 60 times the capacity of liquid hydrogen or something to get the same power output as a litre of diesel.
And then you imagine the battery bank you need to run to 100. Well, like we were talking about Yeppoon to Hamilton Island, 180 nautical miles. Imagine the size of the battery pack you need to put in a 50-foot boat.
Imagine the weight of it.
Yeah, and then your efficiencies go down because you've got to push all that weight. So there's things that aren't really going to change for some time until some revolutionary new technology comes out that does it for you.
Yeah, basically push less water and need less power.
That's right. I mean, the Oleninsky hulls, I think the last change in hull design with Princess was a 25% increase in efficiency. So you take the weight out of the boat by infusing and using lighter weight materials. You run a more efficient engine and you have a better hull shape. That's where you're going to gain your efficiencies.
Yeah, it's the 1%ers, I guess, but it's across the board. It's everything. It's reviewing everything and challenging everything, but having an honest assessment of it all as well. I just think there's a few porky pies that go on in the industry around that whole green thing. And when you have to make engines, you have to specify larger engines in boats because of the weight that you're carrying around because of the batteries, or you're plugging things in on the shore to diesel generators, then it's a little bit of a con job going on. But as long as we have to be honest in our appraisal of all of these things,
and look,
and do our research. I guess.
Well, I mean, a powerboat's a powerboat. If you want a completely green boat, there's a thing called sailboat. So it's still boating, but it's not. It's different. It's a lot of our clients, if they want to go to Whitehaven for the day, that's 45 minutes. It's not a day to get there. So it's a different philosophy on boating. Still enjoyable. I mean, a tenny's an enjoyable day on a boat, but so's a 50-footer.
Yeah.
It's what's feasible for you and your family, and that's what you take from it.
Yep, absolutely. And the memories that you create with the loved ones. That's what it's all about. Or out on your own.
Which you can do these days with a lot of the docking assistance and so forth, and geo-positioning holding and so forth. Makes it much easier than the old days of trying to do that.
When I was in Plymouth in January, we actually went through the first Princess ever made. They found it on the second-hand market and they purchased it and resto modded it, like put a new Volvo diesel in it and did the boat up. So it's quite amazing.
What is that model?
It's a 31-footer. They called it Project 31.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful boat, single-engine diesel. There's a lot of history with Princess. Mr. King that started Princess, he was a merchant in the Merchant Navy, and they left and they were going to build a boat to go around the Plymouth area as a sort of a ferry charter boat type thing, and realised that wasn't a good idea, and ended up selling it and then selling another one. And then one of the dealers in Europe saw this boat in a magazine and went, that's pretty nice. So, and I believe he has now sold 1,000 Princess yachts since he was the distributor in Europe.
Oh, the original guy.
And he was in Scandinavia. His dealership's based.
Wow.
And they've got dealerships all over the world. And a lot of their distributors have been with Princess for 20, 30 years.
And as always, if you've got something to say or you want to be on the show because you think you've got a better point of view than us, bbdust.com, let us know. We're there. We listen.